You know, there's a saying of being careful for what you wish for, because anything you desire can always turn into a bad thing or make something overcomplicated. I bring that saying up to pose a question. For anyone who wanted more of the Vindicators, did you get what you wanted with these shorts? Cause this was definitely something. But my hobby is to talk about the good and the bad and everything in between, so let's do that. Hello everyone and welcome to the Void Theater. As always, I'm your host Alexander. So we've got a bit to discuss in this episode. First off is the announcement of the Rick and Morty Season 6 release date, which is September 4th, so mark your calendars for that. But the main topic today is going to be the Vindicators. More specifically, Vindicators 2, the series of 2 to 3 minute shorts that Adult Swim just released about a week or so ago depending on when this goes up. Altogether, there are 10 episodes, each about 2.5 minutes long, so you put them all together and you got about one episode of the show. So, how is it? Well, if I'm going to be honest, it's really boring. Which is surprising considering this has the makings to be a really solid bit of content, but it doesn't offer anything of substance, and if I'm being frank, it actually kind of ruins the fun of the first Vindicators episode. But we'll talk about that in a moment. But for right now, let's raise the curtain and put this show on stage so we can see where it went wrong. Alright, so to recap the original Vindicators episode, Vindicators 3 was the 4th episode in Season 3 of Rick and Morty. The episode follows the Vindicators, an obvious parody of the Avengers from the MCU, as they bring in Rick and Morty to try and stop a world-ending threat from destroying a planet. Rick then gets drunk and kills all the Vindicators except Supernova, who escapes. The entirety of the episode was one big criticism of the Marvel movie franchises and sort of comic books as a whole. Now, speaking as someone who likes comics, comic movies, and comic-themed video games, I actually kind of enjoyed this episode. To me, this episode is the perfect example of how to do satire and parody right. The entirety of the episode is dedicated to poking fun at the concepts of superheroes and how a decent number of them tend to recycle the same type of origin story. It's a jab at the comic industry and at the mega corporations like Disney who just keep pumping out movie after movie to the point that most people can barely keep up with whatever new thing is coming out. It also takes into consideration one of the most important aspects of doing a parody or satire like this. It never mocks the person who actually likes the type of content. Throughout the entirety of the episode, Rick and Morty never mock comic fans. In fact, the episode goes out of its way to show that Rick is kinda jealous of the popularity the Vindicators have with Morty, who's supposed to be a stand-in for the comic fan.
Holy shit, you're jealous!
Add that to the fact the episode makes it clear that the writer's issue is directed less at comic fans and more at things like the inclusion of lesser-known minority heroes who are brought in to diversify a team only to be killed off, or the fact that there always seems to be some sort of motivational speech about how they're the only heroes who can save the day, and the episode works really well. It's an episode that works because Rick is an asshole who can't let people enjoy things. You know, like Twitter, except somehow less creepy. But the point is, it works. All the things they talk about in the episode are valid complaints, and the episode frames them in some really funny scenarios, and doesn't allow Rick to just get away with all the murdering simply because he's the main character. But that does bring us to the main topic of the video, which are the Vindicator 2 shorts that have recently released on Adult Swim's YouTube page. Now, I did mention that these were set to be released in the last video I made about Rick and Morty, but what I didn't mention was that I thought they were unnecessary. Like I said, Vindicators 3 works because it hits that perfect level of parody/satire without talking down to the audience, but it also worked because the episode didn't fall into the same tropes that the thing it was supposed to be satirizing does. You don't need to know anything about the Vindicators because giving them a backstory takes them away from being a parody of Marvel and DC and makes them actual comic characters. You're not supposed to care about the minority characters dying off because the movies they're making fun of never acknowledge it. It's treated as if it's nothing. But here we have a set of shorts that goes against all that and tries to give details and backstories to things most people who watched the first episode didn't really care about. But regardless, the shorts are here, so let's go over the plot of them. So each short follows the team as they prepare to deal with Doomnometron before deciding to just let Rick handle it. And that's it. That's pretty much the entirety of the plot. Everything else that happens in the rest of the shorts is either completely unrelated to that one plot point or just barely tied to it. So at this point, I do want to make something clear. Despite the title of this video, I don't hate these shorts. I don't really like them, but I don't hate them. They just kind of exist in this weird middle ground. And on a certain level, that's actually worse than being bad. See, normally when I write a script like this, I end up watching the thing I'm reviewing multiple times to get a full feel of it or notice any little details. But with these, I ended up watching them multiple times, not because there was some hidden detail I wanted to get out, but because I genuinely forgot what happened in a lot of them. None of them really stand out in any way. They all just meld together in this weird mismatch of a Rick and Morty episode. The weird thing is that Rick and Morty works well with episodes that don't have a lot of jokes in them. One of the highest rated episodes in the series is the season 5 finale, and it does a good job of keeping the humor to a minimum and still being a good episode. I think the issue here is that the Vindicator shorts are, well, too short. Each one is just barely over a minute and a half long, and that's not enough to do anything substantial. You can't really set up a joke in that time, and you definitely can't make a compelling story in that time. So it feels like the shorts just try and meet in the middle. This wasn't a good decision, but I do think it could have worked. Had the shorts been around 5 minutes, I think it would have given them some time to actually make some sort of cohesive story, or at the very least just set up a joke. Now, I want to be fair here, again, while most of the Vindicator shorts are forgettable, not all of them are bad. When they actually take the time to focus on just one of the characters instead of the whole team, they're actually really solid. All of the shorts that focus on Supernova are insanely well done. And while I'm still not entirely sold on the idea that she was always as crazy as the shorts made her out to be, I do like how it was handled. I like how they show it wasn't because of Rick and Morty. The shorts do a really good job of showing how her slow descent into madness and how Rick and Morty didn't make her crazy. They were kind of just the final nail in the coffin. There's also the shorts that focus on Alan Rails. It's not funny, but it feels more in line with the Evil Morty episodes where the goal is to tell a story more than make a joke. And it does that well. In the original episode, Alan came off as a pretty basic character. And while I'll stand by the fact that a backstory wasn't needed for most of the characters, here it actually serves a purpose. We see Alan as a more sensitive character. He wanted to make his marriage with Supernova work, and he wanted to try and have a normal life. It does a really good job of explaining why he seemed far more bitter in Vindicators 3, and also shows just how far Supernova was willing to go to preserve the image of the Vindicators by manipulating him and the rest of the team. But other than those specific episodes, the rest of the shorts just fall flat. Like I said, if the shorts had been at least 5 minutes, then maybe there could have been something here, but otherwise it just feels forgettable. Overall, if I had to give Vindicators 2 a rating, it would probably be a 7 out of 10. It's not bad, but it does nothing to really wow me. I would say if you had a spare 20 minutes on hand and are looking to kill it really quickly, then give these a watch. Otherwise, you can just go ahead and skip them. You're not going to miss much here. That being said, if they do end up doing a Vindicator 4 at some point, it could be fun to see a Suicide Squad style parody with Supernova trying to build a new team and lying to them about how the original team died. Maybe she blames Rick to try and convince him to join her, but even that feels just unnecessary. I don't know, chances are they'll probably just forget about her. But that's going to do it for this video on Vindicators 2. There's not a lot to say here. I went in with pretty much no expectations and left pretty much the same. And somehow that feels fitting. The first Vindicators episode was okay at best and a good frame of reference for satire with some clever jokes, but the characters themselves weren't that interesting. Or at least they weren't interesting enough to warrant their own set of spin-off episodes. It'd be like giving the Heisting Crew a spin-off. You can, but what's the point? They serve their purpose and the Vindicators serve theirs. And in the case of the Vindicators, the only one people would have wanted to see more of was Supernova. So I guess the shorts have that going for them at least. Here's hoping the spin-off anime thing they're planning turns out much better. Now, normally I would ask a question here, but there's not much to talk about, so are you excited for Rick and Morty Season 6? Let me know in the comments down below and be sure to like and subscribe for more content. Until next time, I've been your host Alexander, and I hope to see you back in my theater.